Hi guys, this is Mrs. Howell. I thought I would do something different this time and let you actually see me as I'm working through these lessons with you. I brought you into my kitchen today. My dogs are in here and they're making some noise, as you might hear in the background. It's evening time here in Lebanon, Tennessee, and there's deer in the yard and the dogs go kind of crazy about them. But anyway, I wanted to move forward with Module 12A, and we are doing the first half of the unit on the lymphatic system. We ended last week with the circulatory system. You'll be taking a test home for that, and then you will also do your lessons for the first half of this module. And then you have 2 weeks of spring break, so you got that to look forward to as well as me. So hope you have good plans. All right, so again for this lesson you've got your guided notes. So I want you to look for the words that are written in red on the slides and look for any stars that you see that signify words or terms that you need to learn for the test that will come up for this unit as well. All right, so let's start with an introduction to what is the lymphatic system. Well, it's a lot like the circulatory system. The lymphatic system has a vast network of vessels that run throughout your entire body. Along these lymph vessels are lymph nodes, and I'm sure you've heard the term lymph node before. When you go to the doctor, if you've got a cold or a sore throat or strep, you think they feel in your neck, and you probably have wondered, what are they feeling for? Well, they're not only feeling for swollen tonsils, which are part of the lymph system, they're actually feeling for lymph nodes that might be swollen in the area. So lymph tissue is groups of lymphocytes, which are a type of white blood cell, and some other cells that support the lymphocytes. So these lymph nodes are just encapsulated masses of lymph tissue that's found along your lymph vessels, and that circulatory system of the lymphatic system. So your lymph system has 3 basic functions, and we're going to go through those. The first one is fluid balance. We also use our lymphatic system for fat absorption. Whether you like it or not, you do absorb fat. And then also for your immunological defense, or as you may call it, your immunity. So let's start with the actual lymph and lymph vessels and talk about what those are. Lymph is a watery liquid that's formed from interstitial fluid, really blood plasma, and it's found in the lymph vessels. So remember that the blood vessels carry blood. Well, lymph vessels carry lymph. So about 10% of the interstitial fluid that's found around your cells is then collected into lymph vessels. And when the fluid enters these lymph vessels, the name changes to lymph. Eventually that lymph gets returned back to the circulatory system, and it either enters the right lymphatic duct or the thoracic duct. And you'll have a diagram in your book that shows you those locations. And both of those areas dump the lymph back into your subclavian vein, which is the vein, the large vein up at the top of the chest, right under your collarbone, that will dump the blood back into your heart to start circulation pumping again. Lymph vessels, remember, travel throughout your whole body. But unlike the blood in the circulatory system, you don't have an organ like the heart in your lymph system to pump and move the lymph alone like the blood gets moved. So instead, the only way your lymph moves through the blood vessel, or your lymphatic vessels, is in a way like the veins. And if you remember last lesson, we talked about how the veins return blood to your heart because of the surrounding skeletal muscles. Same thing with the lymph system. Those lymphatic vessels have blood, or have skeletal muscles that are right next to them, and as those skeletal muscles squeeze, it helps to push and pump the lymph along so that it can run its course. And then inside the lymph vessels, like the veins of your body, you have valves that prevent the lymph from flowing backwards, so it prevents any backflow. There's also a little bit of smooth muscle when you get to the larger lymph vessels, and that smooth muscle contracts slightly to also help pump and move the lymph forward. And lastly, when we breathe, there's a negative pressure that's created inside your chest, and that negative pressure also helps to pull the lymph into that thoracic duct and putting the lymph back into the circulatory system. So just because you don't have a heart to pump lymph fluid, there's lots of other ways that the lymph gets squeezed and pushed through your body. The lymph vessels begin as a blind lymph capillary. So if you look in the diagram, there are endings all over this green drawing, this figure in the slide, and those green dead end streets, they look like little dead end streets or cul-de-sacs in a neighborhood. That's the capillaries that gather the lymph fluid. So these blind lymph capillaries flow from there into larger and then larger and then larger lymphatic vessels as it all comes back up to the area before the heart and helps to flow through the lymph nodes. It filters the blood and cleans out organisms and debris. So look in this diagram. So you see the green lines and then you see the little bulging green areas. Those little bulging areas are where your lymph nodes are located. They're like chains of lymph nodes all through your chest and under your arms and, like I said, in your throat, so that when you go to the doctor they assess for sickness by feeling to see if they're swollen. Because each one of those nodes is a filtering station. As the lymph fluid pulls through there, it filters out harmful substances. So let's talk about those functions. So we've mentioned above that the lymphatic system has three main functions. We had fluid balance, fat absorption, and your immunity or immunological defense. So we're going to tackle these one at a time. So the first one is fluid balance. Without your lymphatic system, bodies would build up an excess of interstitial fluid, which is edema or swelling. Have you ever had edema or swelling in your ankles or feet? Well, sometimes that's because your lymph system can't keep up with the amount of leakage out of your capillaries. So how does that work? Well, you're designed in such a way that some of the plasma from your blood that carries the oxygen and the nutrients leaks out of your capillaries. It's supposed to do that. So the leakage then changes the name of plasma to interstitial fluid. It's the same thing. It's just once it exits the capillaries or the bloodstream, it's called interstitial fluid. So it's in between or interstitial. This leaking is on purpose. God created you so that some of this fluid that has all the nutrients and the oxygen that your cells need would leak out of the capillaries so that the cells can absorb them through their cell layer. So once they leak out of the capillaries, they feed the surrounding cells, and then they also remove from the cells waste and carbon dioxide gas. And those things have to be pushed back into the circulatory system to be eliminated from the body. We learned about that last week. Well, after the interstitial fluid has exchanged those gases and nutrients, about 90% does return by osmosis back into the circulatory system. But only 10% does not. So that 10% has to go somewhere, or you'll end up with edema, as we mentioned at the very top of this slide. So the lymph system's blind capillaries, those little dead-end streets, pull in by osmosis the remaining 10% of fluid and the gathered waste, and then it filters through the lymphatic system. If the lymphatic system wasn't there, in addition to building up excess fluid, you could build up a disease called elephantiasis. Now, elephantiasis, as this picture shows, is a condition that leads to severe edema, and in most cases it's only unilateral. It's on one side of the body, in one limb. So elephantiasis is caused by a parasitic worm in some of these tropical areas that's spread by mosquitoes. And this parasite, what happens is it happens to live in your lymphatic system, in those small capillaries of the lymphatic system. And because it's there, it's a large parasite, it blocks the flow of fluid and it won't let those blind dead ends of the capillary network to pick up and pull fluid and pump it higher up into the system. So it just pools in those lower extremities, and it can cause swelling in the feet and the ankles. Here in the United States, when I was a wound care nurse, I used to treat a lot of patients that had this. It wasn't exactly elephantiasis because it wasn't caused by parasites, but I've had patients that have had what's called lymphedema, and it's the severe inability of the lymphatic system to operate properly because their valves are malfunctioning, or for some reason the walls of these muscles aren't pumping like they should, and it causes the same thing as this picture with the swelling and the buildup of the fluid in the lower legs and ankles. And I've even seen it in the upper extremities in the arms, and I've even had it in the scrotum of men, where those can swell beyond anything you can imagine. So it's really very sad disease. All right, moving forward, the second function of the lymphatic system is fat absorption. And in fat absorption, within the small intestines, there are specialized lymph vessels that are called lacteals. Lacteals are specialized vessels that absorb fat that is digested from your meal that you eat. So when the lymph contains fat, it takes on this milky white color from the greasy fat molecules that are in it. And the name of the lymph then changes to chyle. So really the word chyle, chyle, is just a very fatty lymph. And it's temporary. And what that does is it allows the fat from your food, from your diet, to get into your circulatory system and move through your body to help position fat in different places throughout your body, and it helps your body use fat for building of cells and the things that you need. After a fatty meal, the blood temporarily looks more like tomato soup. That's kind of gross, isn't it? Makes it a cloudy red color. And then after it's filtered, the blood returns to the clear cherry red color that we're used to seeing. And the third is the final function, which is probably the most complex, and that's your immunity, or the immunological defense. And that's just the process where your body is protecting itself from pathological or pathogenic invaders, like when you get bacterial infections or fungi, or parasites, or any other foreign substance. And that's a pretty heavy topic. So we're going to use that for the lesson when you come back from spring break. There's a lot of detail in that on how your body fights infection and how the immunity works in your for you. So in the meantime, as part of your homework, there's a video link here, and I've actually embedded it in the slide and in the video. So hopefully this will work for you, and you'll be able to click on this video and watch the lymphatic system overview from Hank Green from Crash Course Biology. You've seen videos by him before in class, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. I'll put that on your homework syllabus for the week, and I hope you guys have a really fun spring break. I'll be going to the beach, so I'll be very relaxed and rested up and ready when we get back 2 weeks off. So enjoy your 2 weeks, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.